I'm your host, Steffi Pilarino, and today I'm connecting with California with Sonya Dreizler. Welcome, Sonya.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, I reached out to connect with you because I saw the work that you're doing in bringing more women in the financial world, putting the spotlight on them, and you have a very special, unique way of doing that through your company, Choir. Is that the right
Yes.
pronunciation, right? You'll be telling us about your company, but first tell us a little bit about your background. I know that you come from wealth management, financial services. I saw that you were part of Protected Investors America. What was that all about? What kind of work have you done?
Yeah. So my background, I've been in the financial services space for about 20 years, and I'll give you the very short version of those 20 years. So I started, I was not interested in anything finance related, but needed a job and took a role as an executive assistant to the CEO of a broker dealer and RIA. And I learned a lot on the job, and my boss had a lot of faith in my abilities and gave me a lot of new things to learn every so often, and had an open door policy so I could ask her questions. And so learned on the job and did learned a lot about finance, did pretty well. And so she ended up moving me to different departments, and I did a variety of different roles at the broker dealer and RIA after being an executive assistant, and after some years ended up as our chief operating officer. I did that for about 5 years. And then when the CEO role opened up unexpectedly, I threw my hat in the ring and was during the board search process, and eventually was selected for that. So I went from being the executive assistant to the CEO herself. Of course, that took a long time, and it was not a straight route, but we don't have time for all of that here on this conversation. And anyways, what I'd love to talk about more is what came after that. So in 2016, we sold that company, and I started doing some consulting. We had a big a presence in the socially responsible investing, impact investing, what's now kind of lumped into what most people call ESG space. And so I had quite a bit of expertise in that before it was as hip as it is now. So
And
started.
before all the greenwashing, right?
Yeah, there was a little bit at that point, but not nearly as much as there is now. And so started consulting in that space. And as I grew my own business and got to, decide what that looked like for me without representing, a whole other company, just representing me, I started to write and I started to speak. And I found that the things that I really wanted to talk about were the things that I had previously cared about outside of work that I didn't really get to integrate into my more corporate role. And that's racial justice and gender justice. And so those are things that, I had spent time on in my personal life, but not really in my professional life. So it was really a pleasure to be able to integrate them. Pleasure is not even the right word. It felt like the thing I was supposed to do, and you find the thing you're supposed to do. And so it was very nice to be able to use my experience and my platform to work on the things that were most important to me, and to do that in a space where I had a voice and influence. So really focused in on writing and speaking about race and gender in financial services. And I've done a lot of speaking and writing about that, and which takes me up to today, which is I co-founded and launched a company called Choir, which we can get into. And we launched in January of this year with the mission of raising up the voices of people of color, of women, and non-binary financial professionals on conference stages and in the media.
Very interesting. So, I mean, I come from the traditional financial world, and you know, in the early parts of my career, I was attending the traditional conferences, you know, the FMA. Actually, my first job on Wall Street at Salomon Brothers, I found it, or it found me. I had come to the FMA conference in San Francisco. I interviewed with Salomon Brothers, and I got a job before finishing my PhD, actually. And that's how I started. I can't imagine how these conferences look today. Do the traditional financial conferences in the US, and of course I haven't been to one in a very long time, do they look the same? Do they have the same problems? And do you see the same similar problems at fintech conferences too?
Yeah, it varies a lot from conference to conference. It is, generally speaking, there is a large problem that the majority of voices and visibility are for white men. That is a generalization, a pattern throughout the industry. It's one of the reasons that we started Choir. But that is not every conference. Some conferences have been very intentional about including women, less often about including people of color. Although we see some intention there now. And so it really does vary from event to event, but it is still very common to see lineups that are overwhelmingly made up of white men, and having all white men panels, and having what is another common thing we see is that when women of color are included in the lineup, they're often pigeonholed to speak about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is an important topic, and also not the only thing that women of color can speak about. And often they're pigeonholed there, even when they are presidents, CEOs. Like, it doesn't matter what their area of expertise is, people will stick them in the DEI area and ask what it's like, you know, so they can talk about what it's like to be, you know, a woman, or what it's like to be a person of color, or what it's like to be a woman of color in an industry that is not particularly supportive.
So tell us about Choir and how you go about this problem, because I imagine you're not just you know, creating a database of women that should be speaking and you know, giving it out to be searched and so on. I assume there's more to that.
Yeah, we do. There's three things that we do actually, all contribute to erasing the excuses for the you know, conference problems that we see. Yes. And they all work together, but they are three separate things. And just to be clear, right now we are focused on financial conferences in the US. And we also work with media and journalists, typically in the US, but that is not necessarily, doesn't have to be so location specific usually. So, you'll often hear me compare statistics of, you know, how well a conference represented X group compared to the US population, because that is our benchmark that we are measuring against, right? We want the stages to look like the world around us. And we know we have a long way to go, but that's the goal. So the three pieces are, we have conference certification and consulting for conference organizers. So there what we most like to do is work with a conference from the very beginning when they're first starting their planning their agenda, whether that's, a conference organizer or an agenda committee, when they're first starting to think about the agenda and the visibility of, who will be speaking, who are the keynotes, what are the topics. And we come in, we have a lot of tools and resources to help the conference organizer or committee think about including people of color, including women in ways that they may not have considered before. Because often, pressed for time, people just rely on their own networks. And so if a conference agenda committee is mostly white men, our networks tend to be pretty homogenous, right? So, so the people who will be asked to speak also pretty homogenous. So we have a lot of tools for that. We have tools for engaging sponsors in the work, and all with the goal of including more people of color, including more women, including more non-binary financial professionals and experts on stage, and giving them high visibility roles, not just putting one woman as a moderator on a panel of 4 expert men. That's not what we're looking for here. We're looking for high visibility for our expertise. So there's that. We give all these tools and resources and hands-on guidance. And then after the conference, we run the conference agenda through our scoring algorithm, which looks at who is speaking and how visible each speaking role was. And that puts out a score between 1 and 100 that indicates essentially how well a conference represented the voices of people of color, women, and specifically women of color in comparison to their representation in the US population. So gold standard, of course, is, a conference that looks like the world around us, but we know that is very, very challenging for financial services. So the bar for certification is lower than the gold standard, but we have tiers. So we actually do have a gold level certification for conferences that look like that.
What is the scale, just so we get an understanding?
Yeah, yep. The scale is 1 to 100, and conferences that score 60 or above are eligible for certification. And then silver level starts at 75 and gold level starts at 95. And so 95 is basically the percentage matching to representation of women and people of color.
Okay.
And
could you give examples, or this is not really?
Yeah. For us to get certified, so 60 or above, usually a conference has put effort here. This is not something that they just happened to have a conference that happened to score well, unless it's a conference that is run by or for women, by or for people of color. For a typical financial services conference to get certified, they will have had to they have been thinking about the voices that they include. They've been making efforts in the past, year or two, usually, or they're working with us and have made a big turnaround with intention to include those voices. So it is not an easy. Reaching certification level isn't something that just happens. It requires intention.
Okay. Since you are new, have you already awarded some certifications or?
Yep, we have, because we offer certification as a standalone product too. So we're able to look backwards at prior events. Okay. And so, yes, we have certified a number of events already and are working on a couple of events now where we're working on their second certification. Hopefully, they're
can I go onto your website and see who has been certified and use that as one of the filters?
You can
choosing events?
Yes, you can. You can see them. They're on our homepage. They're at the bottom of the homepage. We have two lists.
Mhm.
One that is conferences where their most recent event certified.
Yeah.
We don't know that their future event will certify,
Yeah.
but it's a pretty good indicator, right? That they're
Sure.
thinking about it. And then we have another list of conferences that we're working with right now. So conferences we are helping and hoping they reach certification once they've
In this process, you're obviously empowering people, women and people of color, and are you tracking the profiles of people that are empowered through this process? So, for example, let's say, I was less visible, and because of Choir's help, over the next 2 years, I become much more visible. Is that something that you're tracking?
Not that metric. That would be lovely data to get. We don't have that level of detail
Okay.
right now, but we do have some. I mean, we have that anecdotally, right? So
Correct.
the second piece of the business is what's called the Voices platform. And so if you can follow the, of course, with a business called Choir, we have that name because we think
Yeah.
that just like a choir,
Right.
a choir sounds best when there's a variety of voices, right?
Correct.
Not just one,
Sure.
not just one note. So,
Yeah.
so the Voices platform is a place where financial professionals who are women or who are people of color can create a profile that showcases their subject matter expertise. And it's on our website, which is hellochoir.com, and it's under the Voices tab. And it's a questionnaire that takes about 10 minutes. It's pretty in-depth about expertise, because that is what conference organizers and journalists are looking for. A lot of the databases that exist where they're like, here's 20 women speakers or whatever they
Yeah.
are. Often they just say the name, the title, the company, but conference organizers and journalists are usually looking by topic, or
Yeah.
who can speak about this specific
Yeah.
thing. So we have a pretty in-depth sort of expertise profile builder that helps that facilitation process so that people can be found based on their subject matter expertise. We have hundreds of people on the platform already. We have conference organizers and journalists using it already. And so folks build their profile there, and then conference organizers and journalists, and also like corporate content or like for example, the CFP board, for example, could, if they wanted to, access it to find folks that might write white papers who are, certified financial planners who might help them with, whatever content they're producing. Anyways, they search the platform based on, and they can search based on topic. They can search based on, like I said, based on designation. They can search if they're really looking for a very specific perspective. For example, they want to find the perspective of, say, a Korean woman, or likely Korean American woman. They can put that specific thing into the search, and then search by topic and see what they find, and only see the profiles of, in this case, Korean women.
Yeah.
So so it's a two-way street where so that those folks can find subject matter experts who are from typically underrepresented backgrounds, typically in finance. And so we have that. We also, for conferences that we're working with, we also will do some, specific tailored introductions if needed, but the Voices platform is really meant to work at scale, so that we're not just introducing people from, my personal network, but we can, conferences can look at lots and lots of people that they may not have met before, and they can sort of meet them by using the platform.
So this is a really a discovery tool, an intelligent discovery tool, thinking of how, as you said, conference organizers or media think around
Yes.
thematics and so on.
Yep.
In your ecosystem, who would you consider as your you want stakeholders or allies? I mean, I understand obviously that the event organizers, media people. Can we are fintechs that are, you know, in serving or wanting to serve different affinity groups and so on? Are they involved in your ecosystem, leveraging Choir or working with you, or not yet?
Yeah, well, when we say finance, we include fintech in that, and often I'll specifically say finance and fintech, but I think of fintech as part of the broader financial services ecosystem. And this is built for all of finance. So absolutely included. And so fintech experts or fintech professionals who have subject matter expertise who would like to be on the Voices platform, we welcome them and encourage them to join. We want to know about your subject matter expertise.
Yeah.
And I would note that often I've seen a pattern that for women, we often don't consider ourselves experts. I've had this conversation with people a number of times, where I will ask people if they want to, be on the platform, and they're like, well, I don't know if it's for me. I'm not really an expert. I'm like, you have been working in financial services for 15 years. How are you? I know that you have subject matter expertise in the specific areas that you work in every day. And that is what conference organizers and journalists are usually looking for. They're not looking for somebody who knows everything about every single topic in finance, right? They want very specific subject matter expertise. And once you've been working in the field, even for, just a handful of years, you usually have some very specific,
especially in fintech that is relatively new, especially some areas, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can be working in I don't know, digitizing mortgages or some area like that is not low-hanging fruit for 3 years or 5, and for sure you have a lot of expertise. Even in payments are complicated. And if you're working with a company that's innovating, you understand a lot of things that you not everybody knows, right?
Right. And most people don't know. Even your peers, probably, even, you're not the person sitting next to you, but you're, folks in another company or in different role. Yeah, absolutely. So we encourage folks who have subject matter expertise to join the Voices platform. We can work with fintech conferences, and then there's one other stakeholder who I haven't mentioned yet, and that is we have a role for every single person who works in finance and cares about this issue. And so a lot of folks will say, well, what about the white men? I'm like, and there is a huge role for white men. We need your allyship, and not just saying you're an ally, but just stepping up and being an active ally, right? And so that's something that I have written about and spoken on for years. And so when we launched Choir, we wanted to make a way for active allies to be able to not work with us, but be we wanted to give them the tools to champion the cause as well. And so we created what's called the Choir Pledge, also on our website, which is hellochoir.com, and it's under the Pledge tab. And the pledge sets out 4 very baseline standards for conferences looking to have basic representation and safety measures. These are not the gold standard, but they are achievable standards we think that every single conference can meet. And so people can sign the pledge and say that I am a speaker, or I am a conference attendee, or I'm a conference sponsor and exhibitor, and I will only participate in conferences that meet these 4 baseline standards. And the standards are diversity in keynotes, if you have 3 or more keynotes, diversity on panels of 4 or more, women of color are represented throughout the agenda, not just in DEI sessions, and an enforced anti-harassment policy. That's it. They're, like I said, they are very, very achievable, and people can go on the website and sign, and their name is public on the website, and it says, you know, I'm only going to events that meet these. And then we have a toolkit for folks who have signed so that they can, if they are asked to attend or speak at a conference, there's an email response. There's all kinds of, you know, scripts and tools so they can say, I would love to speak at your event, and I am a signatory to the choir pledge. Do you meet, or do you intend to meet at least these 4 minimum requirements? If so, count me in. If not, I cannot go.
Are you an activist? I mean, I know you're an activist.
Yes.
You know, in your heart and so on. But is choir an activist in the sense of, are you approaching, for example, trade associations in around the financial industry and pitching your, you know, the pledge, your tools, and so on?
So I would say I am an activist. Absolutely, yes. And my co-founder probably would identify as the same. I don't want to speak for her, but I would guess yes. Is choir an activist? I would say we are, you know, aggressively pushing for change in an industry that is far behind and really needs it, but that everything we do to that end, we do with people who want to engage with us. We do not push people to sign the pledge. It is for example, it is a tool for people who consider themselves allies and want to be active and want this tool. It's a tool that is available for them to use. We've made it available and easy, and we want to equip people. We do not want to force people to sign things. We don't want to force, but we don't want to force conferences that aren't interested in this to work with us. We do see that, you know, what we are doing does apply some public pressure. That's part of the pledge, right? Is the public pressure. And we've seen it work. Actually, we've seen it work not with conferences, even those that we don't work with. We have heard through the grapevine and seen conferences responding to this. They see those basic, you know, the basic measures, and they're trying to at least meet those because we've had hundreds of signatories to the pledge. They want all of those people to be able to go to their conference, right? Of course. Yeah.
But when you say you're now in the US, I understand in terms of the conferences, but, you know, me being here in Switzerland and getting invited to an event in London, in Dubai, in Switzerland, whatever, I could sign the pledge, right?
Yeah, you can sign the pledge, sure. We'd love that.
And ask that. So I think, you know, that my next project is going to be to sign the pledge. And when I'm asked to speak at any event during the World Economic Forum in Davos in January, I say, you know, if your event is like this, then I'm happy to join.
Great. We would love that. And I also think you don't need a lot of help finding speaking engagements. I know that. But if you would like to be on Voices, we would love to have your profile on the platform so that people who don't already know about you could find you based on your subject matter expertise there.
I
Because there's
mean, for
journalists.
me, I'd love
Oh,
to
yeah.
do that. More importantly, for me, I get excited when I can reach women that I don't know in my personal network and tell them that, you know, you can do it. You can do it, really.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm happy even to mentor women in not on their subject matter expertise, on how to really offer that and share it to the world, right?
Yeah. Well, I would next year when let me start that over. Right now, the Voices platform is in beta. And so we are, bringing people on both sides so that so the conference organizers and journalists can find all these folks. And next year, when we bring it out of beta to be a more robust product, one of the things that we will be offering to people who are on the Voices platform, so to the financial professionals and experts, is a resource library. Hang on one second. My cat is trying to knock everything off the desk. Oh,
Okay.
okay. We'll be offering a resource library that includes, we already have a wide range of people, from experienced speakers to people who don't want to speak just yet, but are thinking about it. And so we want to offer a toolkit and a resource library to help folks who might not have access. They don't have PR training. They're not getting that through their company, or that maybe they're self-employed. And so we want to give both media training and speaker training and help people at scale. And so I would love to come back to you about that offer. Oh, here she is.
Yes, let's
Come back to you about that offer and see if there's, if you have wisdom and expertise that you want to share with folks who the voices on our platform, and have you be a part of that resource library so that you can, do that mentoring and do it for a wide audience.
I'd love that. And I think, some live sessions of really having that audience, it really makes a difference than the recorded sessions. And,
Yes.
of course, in person, but if it's a live session, it really makes a difference, because you can really feel the energy of the person, and it's not that there's no editing. You get into that flow and you transmit to others your journey. I mean, I will never forget that when I started my job at Salmon Brothers in the 90s, of course I was a minority, except the secretary on the trading desk. This is Salomon Brothers. I have frozen a bit. And it's all traders, guys, the guys that left to form long-term capital. You understand the culture there, and I'm part of the research, the quantitative research group, supporting, right? My boss is a man, the other guys are all guys, and so on. And then after 3 months, my boss asked me to go and talk to the company monthly meeting, where he was supposed to present what we are doing. And he handed it to me to go. I was terrified, of course, right? And I really was angry with him, because and afterwards, I mean, I realized that the guy was really empowering me. He did it again and again and again. And I owe him a lot for that. And I want to give it to other people, and especially women.
Yeah.
Have that expertise, and you have to stand up there you know, do that and learn how to communicate the tech and the human part too.
Yeah, yeah. I had that with my first boss too. She just gave me so much responsibility so quickly, and because she knew I had the capacity before I understood I had the capacity, and she let me, ask her questions. She wasn't just like throwing me in the deep end with no resources. She threw me in the deep end, but with some resources, and including one of them was she would ask me to present at meetings on really small stuff at first, really small, easy, low risk, but I was so nervous about it. And just having a little bit of practice on a small, not a huge topic, not a huge lift, but knowing that I could get up there and speak in front of everybody and not perish on the spot is really good. Is really good for me, for my experience, and just to know.
Yeah. So, dear Sonya, what books are you reading these days? If you're
Oh,
reading any, or are you a visual person?
I read, let's see, I read a lot, mostly read fiction. I have enough
Perfect.
nonfiction in my real life. Right now I am rereading 17 Syllables, which is not that old. It's a collection of short stories. I think most of them are written in the 50s, and it is. I read it in college. I was an English major, and it's one of the ones that I still have like the sticker from my university on the binding, and I pulled it off the shelf the other day, and I thought, oh, let me read this. And even though the stories are, oh, gosh, close to 70 years old, a lot of the themes they're actually themes about women and also people of color, written by a Japanese author in the United States, and the treatment of folks. And it's sort of disturbing how resonant the stories are still. You would like to think those things are in our past, but they could have been written. Most of them could have been written today, which is frustrating, but the writing is beautiful, and the stories are just short and wonderful. So that's what I'm reading right now. Also, I read a little of everything: poetry, historical fiction, all of it. What are you reading? I love books.
Now that you said Japanese author, I'm thinking, both summer readings, those are the times where I can read the book in a really short time, because I'm really focused on the book. We're both Japanese authors. The last summer, I read Clara and the Sun.
Oh, I've heard of that, but I haven't read it. Did you enjoy it?
You have to read that one. Amazing. I mean, it's a bit futuristic, with life with robots, but it's just a wonderful book. And this summer I read a book that I don't remember the title right now, but the story was remarkable. It's about these Japanese women that were divers. This is the Second World War, and it's a community where basically women deep dive with no oxygen or anything, and they bring the food, they take care of everything, and men sit at home and cook and take care of the children. And it's about this powerful community and how they lived through Second World War, and very emotional stories. I don't know. I mean, you made me realize that I like Japanese authors. I'm a big fan of Murakami, and I've read all his books.
Yeah.
Are quite weird. They're not the mainstream.
Yeah, and some of his they like, wow, those ones, they will stick with you and like
They will stick with
haunt
you.
you forever when you read them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's very important to read fiction books and completely, unrelated to whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I agree. It's really nice to, it's just a good escape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Diversity in the worlds that you dive in, right? The your business world, your social life, and then you go into these I guess it's our metaverse, right?
Yeah, and where did I hear this the other day? I can't remember, but somebody was saying that often fiction versus nonfiction is described, at least with children, like in school, fiction is fake and nonfiction is real.
Really.
And like, I mean, we know now, like, history is written by the victors, right? Like, nonfiction is not
Exactly.
necessarily real or facts, but it is an interpretation of it. And fiction is often so you gets at real truths in a way that nonfiction cannot sometimes. And so this person had rephrased to say that nonfiction is learning through facts and fiction is learning through imagination, something like that, where it's just two different types of learning.
Well, for me,
Both learning.
nonfiction is a bit like, it's not science, but it is along those lines. It's like some analytical, framework or description. It's really like a blueprint or something like that. It's more analysis,
Mm-hmm.
and the other is not analysis. It draws you in. It's much more immersive.
Yeah. Yes.
It can be about war, about love, about social issues, and so on. And it's an immersive experience. Nonfiction is not an immersive experience. It's an
Right.
analysis of whatever, right?
Right.
The theme. The theme is definitely. Sonia, it was great discussing these topics with you. I will share
Yeah.
with our audience all your links, and I look
Great.
forward to being part of this activism of yours.
Oh, thank you. It was really a pleasure to chat this morning. We'll have to have another chat just about books and fiction. I could go on about that for another hour.
100%.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
take care, and I'll talk to you soon.